I really enjoyed the lady just before the break that spoke up about can we create bigger than our imagination. It took me back to, I read the book Illusions years ago, and I didn't quite get it at the time, but he wrote something to the effect that no matter how big you can imagine it, the is has imagined it even bigger, something of that nature.
We would say the is did not imagine it bigger. The is just held every piece that was put into it and didn't forget any of it.
Thank you.
Did you see the difference?
I do,
In other words, it sounds like someone outside of you is imagining it, and you are causing the expansion, but this non-physical energy is holding each piece of it for you to come into alignment with it.
When I was about 9, the doctors said they didn't think I would live another winter. I had a visit with God. God didn't talk back, but I said to God, if you'll let me live this winter, I'll dedicate the rest of my life to you. And so then, knowing what to do with my life, I wasn't really sure, because there's so many different ways to go. And so then I kind of thought, well, probably my best work would be to help people be happier, which is kind of the direction I went. But then I also wanted to be free at the same time. In other words, I want to do it on my own terms. And so I played along with that for quite a few years, and then it got really firmed up to the point that I really got to the realization of, I heard that line somewhere, that it's better to teach somebody how to fish than to throw them a fish when they're hungry. I lived enough life with enough people to realize, well, that's true for me, apparently. I can be of more advantage to people teaching them to fish than throwing them fish when they're hungry. And so...
some people are allergic to fish anyway.
Okie dokie. Oh, say, how about a piece of tofu? I'll throw him a piece of tofu. All right, so as life went along, and I found the work that I thought would fill all those needs, and that was percolating along. And then I found the book Think and Grow Rich, which I thought, well, this is my calling. This is what I'm here for, is to teach the information in this book, Think and Grow Rich. But there were things missing, and I didn't know where to find the answers. And then, bingo, you're in our life. And so, well, wow, so just the evolution. In other words, my point is it's just getting bigger and bigger without me even knowing the bigger picture or even being to imagine it. There you were. I never imagined you and my wife, especially.
Another way of saying it is didn't see that coming.
Well, it was really strange in the early days, you know, because I like my privacy. But anyway, I got used to it. So, so this started happening in our life, and because of a few seeming circumstances, life started ending in the direction of working with you as well as my other business. But I said I would never let you get in the way of my other business, which seems to have kind of gone away by now, but the bulk of it. So anyway, I remember coming up here and we did a workshop. A lady, Joanne, asked us to come and stay at her home and all that, and we'd have like 12, 15 people, and she says, oh, I remember Rumph was here, there were hundreds of people, or something like that. And I thought, that's interesting, but I didn't really picture that. And then I watched how this evolved to where now that's happening with our work. And my point is, I didn't imagine it big. All I imagined was making this available to as many people as were asking. In other words, you used a line earlier, the rising tide raises all ships. But I came to the realization it won't raise rocks. In other words, they still stayed at the bottom. In other words, if whatever you're wanting to raise isn't a vibrational match to what's going on, you can't force people to let go of the rocks, whatever. All right, so we moved along and like this. And then I watched life to where now your teachings are reaching throughout the world through so many different languages, way, way beyond anything I imagined, but I had a desire to want to make it available to everyone in the world. When this first started, I told Esther, wouldn't it be wonderful if everybody could find this information, those who are looking for it. And so that's been our work.
Maybe this word imagine is
Yeah, okay.
Not what it's cracked up to be.
Good.
Maybe the misunderstanding is that you have to fashion it all out with all of the details in your own mind, when what's going on is, by sifting through the life that you're living, you keep asking for this piece and this piece and this piece. And you've heard us say that what's amassing here in this vortex is bigger than anyone could hold and contemplate simultaneously. But that's not your job. It's just your job not to be out of sync with what you've put there. You see, each piece you put there, Source synthesizes and holds steady the vibration of, and then your work is much simpler than to try to imagine it all. The benefit of working to imagine something is that as you try to imagine something in the way you want it to be, you're more likely to be in the vortex. But you could also pet your cat or meditate and hold no thought. It's just you can't do that resistant thing. The creation occurred when you were sifting through the data. That's the thing that most people don't get. The creation occurred. Step 1 says ask. That's the creation point. It is created when you ask. That's why the book said ask and it is given. It's done there. Ask and it is done. An even more emphatic title. Ask and it is done. But before you can feel the fullness of it showing up in your life experience, you have to get on the vibrational wavelength with what is asked and what is done. You don't expect your cell phones to be on different frequencies and to be able to communicate. You don't expect to set your radio dial on one frequency and hear what's being broadcast from another. You understand frequencies relative to your electronics, and this is the same thing. You've put your asking into your vortex, and now you've got to set your receiver on the frequency of what's there. And maybe you might feel like you have to imagine it in order to do that. We say you just have to get happy in order to do that.
When I was like in high school, I remember looking at old people, 30-year-olders and people like that were wearing out, and I kept hearing them say, well, I used to do this, and when I was your age, I could do that, and I could do that. And I thought, well, I'm going to someday have a life that when I don't want to do the physical stuff, I'm going to find a life that I'm going to be joyous in my mind. I'm going to switch from the physical, because all my joy was in my body years ago as an acrobat and a gymnast, and everything was physical. All my pleasure was physical. And so I thought, I someday want to have pleasure, mental pleasure, when I get older, so I can be joyous my whole life through and not get to that point that I can't be happy because I can't do the physical things that I couldn't do. But I had no way of imagining how this would all happen, this wonderful mental experience I'm having now. I still have physical experiences, I walk and stuff, but flop around in the pool a little at night in the moonlight, but nothing major. But anyway, so what made me think about this whole thing, why I'm even here right now, was the new house. So the new house, when we bought this little piece of land, is one little patch. It was a patch that became 40 acres as it turned out. But right there, on that 7-acre plot, I drew out an L-shaped building. I drew out the barn. I drew out a garage apartment. I drew out a tree house, and I drew out a place for a home. And all those things went on for years and years, for like 15 years, and then just now, the home ended up, and I told Esther, isn't this something that after all these years, now we have 40 acres, that the house ended up right between these 6 or 7 trees where I had originally designed. I designed it, and we wanted a Tex-Asian home, and so we had a fellow from Korea come over and design the home, but I plan to live to be 120 years old, still enjoying my business, and so I didn't want any steps in a house, because I don't see any 120-year-olders enjoying stairs, and so So the architect designed it flat, but then it ended up with a real high footing on one side because it's on a hillside kind of. So anyway, so another architect came and said, that'll never do, cancel that, we paid that one off. And another architect came from Hawaii and flew over, and he designed the home that he made it fit. I said, isn't it the most amazing thing that it still ended up being exactly where I drew that house years and years and years ago. I drew a footprint, and now here is this elegant place. The roof is from Japan in a steel gray color, so it kind of fits in with the oak trees all around it. And the interior walls are all from China. They're quartzite that's just chipped, so you see all the little glisten, it just sparkles, and it's like 14-foot high ceilings. And the floors are all from North Carolina. There's a wonderful situation where rapers and robbers and murderers And thieves that work at a prison, they distress this wood. And so, I mean, these panels of beautiful walnut floors, you can tell which one was which because you can feel their anger coming out in it, and also, and it helps them all because they get so many cents an hour for themselves, and so many cents an hour for their victims, and so many cents an hour for their families, and so many cents an hour goes to some money that they can have when they get out so they can start off good again. And so, but we walked into this house. The kitchen's shipped over from Italy, but I mean, it's really an international house, even though it is Texas and Asian primarily. When we walked into this house, I said to Esther, and to anyone that was there, I said, this is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my life. And I've been in some beautiful homes. I have just never seen anything so beautiful. I said, how did this happen? I didn't envision this. Esther and I, we just envisioned a little piece here, and a little piece there, and a little piece there, and a little piece there. And a color here, and a wallpaper there, and a lighting fixture there. And somebody came and put all that stuff together, and it is so far beyond my expectations or Esther's. And so would you now clarify how that is as opposed to expectations?
Look at your world in general. In other words, we talk about how you are source energy who come forth in this variety of perspectives, whether you are one-celled organisms or whether you are genius humans. And you explore your corner of the world, so to speak, where you carve out from the explicit details that you are involved in your desire. And your desire then shoots forward and is held in this vortex with other desires that come forth. In other words, what you described in the way this house came together is the way your world came together and continues to come together. People all over the world having exposure to life and to each other, requesting improvement. And the improvements, as they are chosen, piece by piece, bit by bit, are held by this greater consciousness who has the capacity to hold them all simultaneously, waiting for your readiness or your allowing to receive. And it's interesting because the new generation coming forth is more likely to receive than the generation that was here before. It's this wonderful recycling process where old cranky ones are croaking and new allowing ones are being born, and those like you are coming into alignment anyway, even though you're old. And so that's why we can unequivocally proclaim to you the well-being of this eternal expansion of this process of creation that's taking place here on your planet. That's why when people speak of the planet being in peril and they talk about global warming and they talk about economic downfalls and they talk about empires crumbling down, we say to you that because of the diversity and the magnitude of numbers that are present and the asking that is taking place on an individual basis from so many of you, not just humans, and as the requests are being made and being held and future generations are coming in who are certain to allow them, the well-being is assured. You don't have to be good for the salvation of your planet. You only have to find alignment for the well-being of your moment, you see. And so you've offered a very compelling conversation because no one, not one of you could ever stand where you stand and give an even close to accurate description of what's going on in your vortex. Wow. Nor do you need to. Some of it you put there when you were just born. Some of it you put there before you were even in your body. Some of it you have cellularly put there. Some of it you put there yesterday. You might recall some of that. But most of it you can't recall and you can't conceive of, but you can feel it. You can feel it when you find it. Do you remember when you found that land? And you said to Esther, as you were walking across it, before you even considered purchasing it, right. You didn't even know it was for sale. You said, someone really happy has lived in this spot. And a few years later, after a piece has come together and a piece has come together, you're standing in that building looking out and saying, remember when I said someone happy has lived here? And we said to you, it was your vortex you were feeling in advance.
Wow. Yeah.
In other words, you stood on it, you felt it, it was there for you, it was in the process of unfolding, and you followed your bliss to it, you see. You didn't think your way there, you didn't create your way there, you didn't set your goal your way there. Life causes you to ask, and if you care about the way you feel, you will allow, and well-being is your legacy, it's your birthright, it's the way it is supposed to be.